All right, welcome everybody. Today we are doing 7-3 deuce flush draw board, and this study is again from our first drill session that we did. Some interesting things on this board. We'll start looking at the aggregation report, which has similar flops which are still 7 high. I've filtered it so that it reflects 7 high, flush draw, non-paired board. So middling and the lowest cards will be of course lesser than 7 and 6 through deuce. We confirm that, and we have a bunch of flops, and the most common trend that we see for in position, I'll just quickly show the ranges. All right, the in position range, that is cutoff range, is you can see the suited 6s and offsuit 9x. Starting from ace-5 off, and pretty much most of the suited broadways, queen 4 being the cutoff, the edge of this, the lower end of the suited broadways that we open, down to pocket 3s, 30 big blind. And big blind is supposed to defend a huge part of the range, like 80%, with a lot of all-ins from the pocket pairs and bunch of ace-x's, and these blocker property suited hands shoves, which still have decent equity when called. All right, interesting flop, and what we are looking at is big blind. So since this is a bit more in big blind's range, I feel it's value to just give me a sec. Let me track the window. All right, so I've included out of position dongs possible. Also as a question in the summary that we are going to make. Bad. Session 3. Okay. This is also something that we are going to check on each and every board. I'm sure within a few sessions we'll have a very streamlined template that you also can use when you look at flops. Even if you're watching a video, you could still have this template open so that you have a nice understanding. Now we'll update all of these as well as we go ahead. I've just kept these in because we want to capture them. Okay. So we see that big blind, even though this is a 7 high board, big blind does not really have any dongs. So that question is clear. We can straight away go to cutoff. That is in position action on this board. Before we do that, we'll just jump back to the report section and see what is the general approach that we want to take when it's a 7 high flush draw board, non-paired. Seems like the general approach is about half of the times you're expected to check in position player. Even though we have a slight equity advantage, still this board clearly connects so much better with the big blind range. Big blind has all sorts of strong hands, definitely all flush draws, and possibility of making much stronger hands on turn and river. Bet small in general, the cutoff versus big blind strategy, like over all the possible flops, is this: that there are few checks, a lot of small bets, and a few large bets, medium to large bets. But here there's a clear deviation. This board, we can say it's a clear on the lower end in terms of favorable boards for in position. Still, we do have a slight in position equity advantage. We can see the equity advantage here as well, in position and out of position. You can see in general we are supposed to be 60-40 over all the flops averaged out. On 7 high flops, especially the ones that we have filtered, it's coming close, which is 53 and 46. Although this might look like whatever 7-ish% advantage, is not exactly something that puts us in a great spot. Definitely more on the trickier side. All right, so 7-3 deuce is a board of our interest, which is all the way down over here. And we see that this particular board, as compared to rest of the boards, does have slightly lesser checking percentage, and those checks which reduce from these general boards, I guess they convert into a small bet, which is also reflected by this 36 versus overall 10 to 25 or 11 to 25 kind of a small bet frequency. Small and large bets also are some things that we'll take a look at, but still we can see that 7-3 do's large bets are reduced significantly. They are split between large bets and medium bets, whereas on the other boards, which are higher in terms of the second card and the third card, they see a lot of large betting and small betting. So that's an interesting thing to note. So what I've done is, along with 7-3 deuce, I have taken 7-6-3 flush draw board. Again, because it has a very interesting split and it represents rest of such hands, 7 high texture on texture boards, with exactly 55% checks, like a lot of checks and interesting betting pattern. So first of all, we look at the top half of the screen and understand the heuristics on this board. We understand the thresholds and commonly overplayed, underplayed hands, and combos where we are making errors, and then identify some more aspects of it. Okay, so we start with the threshold, which is clear, that is ace high. As we can see, in position has a lot of checks and a lot of mixed bets, with even larger bets coming into place. We'll try and see what hands exactly are making that play. Ace king, ace queen, ace jack, the stronger part of ace x range, even if offsuit. I don't see any clear difference here between the offsuit and the suited combos. So I guess with flush draw, without a flush draw, with backdoor flush draw, we can see if we select ace king, for example, which is, let's say, ace king of spades is pretty much supposed to bet in a similar manner as ace king of hearts, which is interesting. I would probably almost never include bets with both clubs in hand, until now, that is. Going ahead, I'll try and employ as much intuitive hands. Like, we see that these are super strong hands in our range, pre-flop, of course. And on the flop, we come to a junction where these could be, again, with two overcards, they could be way ahead of our opponent's trash, and the hands that have not connected, kind of offsuit hands that opponent has with one heart and probably one other card which is still not has a piece of the flop. So all of such hands are easily losing versus strong ace-x hands. There's no doubt about it. And I think the bets do a good job of kind of making it difficult for our opponent to guess when we bet. Like, it does not always mean we have a flush draw when we go out and bet small. So I've deliberately kept this bet small, bet medium, bet large. We can also do it like this. This only makes it a bit more complicated to have a first look on these boards, in my opinion. So I've even started with this approach earlier. Yeah.
Abhishek here. How did you make that small, medium, large you were saying?
So on GTOWizard, there's a sorting menu where you can choose. You can see on the right hand side there is this 4 squares. So you
Is
can
this
just go
for
there.
paid or the free version?
This should be available on all versions. I don't think
Okay,
it's a
okay.
paid only feature or anything. So yeah, so you can go absolute simple as well if you just want to understand, what are we betting. If that's our interest, we can just see it shows in a very simple 2 blocks of color. So you get a nice picture of how it is. I've done this quite a bit and moved a little bit ahead so that I get a better picture of bet small, bet large, and overbet. Yeah, this is a color scheme I feel okay for now. It kind of makes it easier since green is a bit passive color. That's just my opinion, all right. Orange and what is this, yellow and tending to red kind of indicates you go crazy. All right. So, like I was saying, ace highs and king highs are the hands that are clearly split in between. You can see a lot of green, that is a lot of checking happening. There's no doubt about it. So let's see, ace 5 suited. Okay, what if 7xx mono board? All right, so mono boards and such probably um, are significantly different than these flush draw boards. Let's focus on the flush draw board for now. Let's arrive at some common heuristics and understanding, and then we can of course push these aspects. Like we can directly when we have a summary of how we play on these boards, I feel we can do much better job on understanding the differences on mono board, but we can't take all of them at the same time. No problem. Yeah, that's an important point. Like I have been going through such loops quite a lot, where I feel interesting. Okay, I've even been interested in like either 7 and 3 if they are the flush cards, and 2 is an offsuit, like 2 is a diamond and 7 3 of hearts. Does it make a difference? And even such nitty-gritties you can go into, but that just sends you down a rabbit hole where you just keep looking at new boards and end up not efficiently making conclusions from the study, whatever time you devote to it. So this works great. I think we'll also get this reviewed and looked into by Anuj and a couple of other people on the group to see if we can make it even more efficient. All right. Okay, so for now, we have identified the check and bet threshold very clearly on ace high and king highs. I was looking at ace 5 suited and ace 6. Okay, so we see that ace 6 and ace 5 with even with the flush draw, like especially ace 6, we can have a look at it. Ace 6 has a 6 in between the cards on the board. Can imagine some sort of added equity with the hand, because not only it has a flush draw, but we could make a straight with the low cards coming in. So 4s, 5s, 8s, anything on the turn would be good for it. So I guess this checks to protect the checking range, which is a common thing said. I've taken quite a long time to understand what that means. But what that essentially means is when we are checking a lot of trash hands and we are just realizing equity in position, we also want to include some hands that are so strong that if the opponent decides to lead on the turn, we continue with a good part of our checking range as well, check back range as well. So when ace 5 or ace 6 with hearts chooses to check back, the plan is to of course be able to continue with a good part of our checking range. So if we check 36% of our hands, we can see that okay, let's exclude hearts and let's exclude all of these. So we can see that a good part of the checking range is of course trash. It's not going to be able to continue. Let's say exclude diamonds as well. We see that the amount of combos go down significantly when we remove those, which means we are checking back a good portion of backdoor flush draws and flush draws, which can easily continue when when there's a lead from. Okay, there's a raised hand. What do you want to say, bro? Avinash, you can mute yourself. Unmute yourself, I mean. I can. Okay. If you have
Hello,
anything, just
am I,
say. No issues.
yes, Bhushan, am I audible right now?
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, Bhushan, this particular board, basically we saw that every ace, may it be A6 suited ones or A6 offs, everything is basically betting small, right? So what is our plan if BB gets to 3-bet us here? Do we just continue? I understand we are betting with ace so that we fold out BB's trashes out there. But if he just bets us, what's our plan? We just float?
So basically, how we respond to a check raise. That's the question with
Yes.
these hands. Okay, we'll get to that
Yes.
when we have established our bet 33 or a bet small range. we'll look at the big blind response and then look at the cutoff response. So let's
Right.
go with that sequence. All right.
Right.
So, okay, we have talked about checking. We are checking bunch of strong hands like nut flush draws. A lot of nut flush draws are checking with a low card in hand. Similar is the case with suited kings as well. You see a lot of king X's like second nut flush draw hands are having significant checks in the range as well as bets in the range spread out. Now, realistically, I don't think I can mix so efficiently over king 9 suited like this, like such a small percentage of check and small percentage of bet small. Basically, we are doing everything with this hand, which tells me that if we just go ahead and take the most common actions, which is bet small or bet medium, we are not going to be wrong if we do it all the time. So I just plan to use some combos to just bet all the time and some combos to check all the time. And here it's very clear. It's so much better if we use a cluster like king 7, king 6, king 5. Let's say we used to bet all of those and we can choose to check these higher hands just to keep it more simple for time being. So that's one approach that I take. You guys can also think about it and come up with your plan. I'll share these screens so that you can have a plan to go, or you can study on your own and have questions for discussions later. Now that's check. When we talk about betting small, we see that GT of course wants us to bet small with almost everything. But that's when again these thresholds come into play. We see that the stronger part of a range, not sets, but top pair and a lot of ace highs use the bet small generously. See, huge chunk of this is yellow, significant chunk of this small band is also yellow. So top pair, over pair, stronger part of our range is going with that approach. And that is often reflected with the stronger part of our draws as well. So flush draws, combo draws, there's no open-ended straight draw on the board for in position, of course. This is too low of a board. So if we look at this, we can identify that clearly the stronger part of the range just wants to go ahead and bet small. And by bet small, of course, we mean less than 36%. And another heuristic is I like to combine medium and large bets because I see they are so commonly together in most of the combos. So clearly top pair, any top pair with some sort of a redraw, like let's say 9-7 with the flush draw, like this would definitely be included in combo draw, I think. Oh no, it's not. Okay, this is not a combo draw. Combo draw would be where we are also drawing to straights and some sort of flushes. So yeah, 6-5 suited would be a combo draw where clearly just one card can get us a straight and also a flush. It should be great. Same thing with ace-5 suited and ace-4 suited, because we can make wheel straights with the ace as well as we have nut flush draw to go. But yeah, this is a clear pattern that we bet all the 7x's in our range, and we also spread out the bets with overpairs to the 7, like 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, and we see aces and kings, and this suited Broadway part of the range and even off suited Broadway part of the range prefers to just check bet small in general. That is also in sync with what we have seen here. That is a stronger part of range just wants to do that. So yeah, those are basically parts of let's say the good hands. We talked about this, the equity buckets in which we have not the best equity advantage over our opponent's equity, but it's definitely decent. Okay, let's filter out bet large, bet medium. So over pairs are clear, top pairs are clear. There's also a gut shot, but not so much. So I'll ignore studying gut shots into the large bets. And we can see a lot of trash hands are interested in doing the bet large play. So what exactly is trash hand over here? So queen jack, even if it's spade or club, it's going to use the same large sizing that we would like to use with a lot of our good hands. So clear bluffs. And at the same time, I feel the understanding is that we have two overcards here, which again redraw to a better top pair, like turn and river. If we hit a jack or a queen or a 10, anything is going to be a better top pair. If our opponent has already made a pair or a piece, or they are on a draw, we are very likely to be good when we have two overcards. That's how I understand it. All right, so this is pretty much it. If we, yeah, these are probably my overplayed hands. I would say I'd definitely go ahead and bet ace fours and ace fives for sure, ace deuce. Also, I'd very likely go ahead and bet. So these are my overplayed hands. I'm not sure what opponents are going to be overplaying when we bet, but let's look into that aspect as well. Before we move on to that, we can now compare these thresholds with the thresholds that exist on 763, and we see such a significant difference right now. So over pairs to 763 just want to bet large, and by bet large we mean 67 to 100, so almost 60 to pot kind of bets. And that's interesting. The difference being 7-3 deuce is connected a lot more to the lower part of the range, this part of the range that we're circling in the top section, versus 7-6-3, which is just slightly pushing it up. I mean, when you look at it, 7-6-3 and 7-3 deuce, they don't really seem that different when we are in position. Like, we don't have a bunch of hands that are so much better off on this board as compared to how they are on this board in terms of equity advantage as well as net advantage. So if you look at sets, we clearly see that we have some sixes and some threes here as well. And here the difference is that we just don't have deuces in our range. So apart from that, I don't think we are so much significantly better in terms of the hands that we hold and the advantage that we have over our opponent. But since it is 6-3, there's so much more likelihood that our opponent can have a lot of open-enders as well as a bunch of two pairs in their range. We can quickly go to that as well. We just bet small and look at the big blind. So big blind, let's see, top pair, two pair, and a bunch of straights and open-ended straight draws as well. Whereas here, top pair, two pair. So this is going to be, hold on, why isn't, okay, it aggregates, okay. Okay, so here we can see the overall component of their range that is making super strong hands is about 14% over here and much less over here, which is probably why we want to go ahead and bet our strong hands and get value from most of their range, which could easily be a bunch of third pairs, second pairs, and top pairs for sure. And at the same time, you can see the raises that we can expect to answer your question, Avinash. Raises that we can expect here as compared to the raises that we can expect on 7-3 deuce board are half, 7% here, medium raise I'm talking about, and here it's 15. And clearly the raises are also coming super value driven, like a bunch of top pairs in their range are going to be check raising, whereas here not so much. And the difference is clearly just because there are two connected cards, 7 and a 6, there are a lot of open-ended straight draws and a lot more draws in picture as compared to 7-3 deuce. All right.
So Bhushan, basically, when we face that check raise on the big blind on 7-3 deuce board, which is 15%, we just saw.
Yeah.
So
So let's
what's our
just do
response
that
then?
and let's see. Yeah, we'll go to that now. I think it's 7. Let's just, yeah, 7. So we are supposed to continue with all pairs that we hold, even the second pair, top pair. Of course, all the flush draws are definitely continuing. But if we look at ace 5 suited, one which would have bet, let's say, 33% in position, we are expected to continue all of them. So ace 5 suited, all ace 5 suiteds are continuing because we have a gut shot and an overcard, and all these I imagine backdoor flush draws and flush draws. Yeah, most part you see ace 9 suited, ace 10s, and let's say ace 7, which is a pair and a draw. So in this case we have a pair but we don't have any other draw going for us. Ace 7 is definitely nut flush draw, so we just want to call and realize equity in position. And yeah, it is suggesting that we go the aggressive route. If we have a top pair with an with ace, like ace 7, and all the other hands that we are betting with additional equity, like ace 5 suited has additional equity of having a gut shot, in addition to having an ace in hand, like a high card, the best high card. So that's the approach with ace x combos. And if we look at, if you look at bunch of draws that we are going to do that with, most folds are still coming from ace x's. So we see that these combos which do not have a heart are tending to fold a lot more. So see, spade and a club, we tend to fold quite a lot. Spade and a diamond, but there's just one diamond over here, so clear folds. So even though it's a ace queen category hand, so 2 overs, but we don't have any piece on the flop, neither do we have a backdoor, so it's clearly folding. When we have ace of hearts though, we have the opportunity of making runner nut flush, like if 2 hearts show up. So just to utilize that aspect of our advantage, we want to call and take a turn card. That's the approach. Similar
Bhushan
approach
also,
down. Yeah.
sorry. Bhushan
Yeah.
also ace 8 off, 10 ace jack off. Some of them are actually jamming with some frequency. Not sure why.
I'm not sure either. This could be a case of balancing our shoves, which could be value with, I mean, this is clearly not a value shove. This is clearly going to be something that balances the value shoves, but at the same time holding an ace and basically 2 overcards and a flush blocker in this case. That's as much as I understand, but we'll note this point and bring it up as a question from our series, like why do we expect ace jack off with let's say ace of diamonds. Jack of hearts is still too weak in my understanding. Let's see if my understanding is correct, or you'd want to have an input by some people who understand this better. But that's a good point. All right, we go back to comparing the heuristics again after looking at that check raise. So one thing that's very clear is in position, since we have only one open-ended straight draw in our hand, we do not have the 5-4 suited as much, I think. Yeah, it's already a straight, but okay, that's not going to be included as much. We have very few 5-4s. We don't open 5-4 so much. So we are essentially going to have just one open-ended straight draw combo, but everything that's above a 7, let's say all the 7x's, all the 8x's, all the 9x's with are basically qualifying as 2 overs and a draw potential. So like if we compare ace 8 of spades has 2 overs and a possibility of making runner on a straight. Same is the case with ace 8 clubs, of course. So that is one angle that I've not ever thought of in terms of having 2 overs and no flush draw equity and still going with a medium and large size bet. So those hands are clearly underplayed by me until now. And these are very intuitive, like all the over pairs, I'm sure all of us bet them, even population does that. So they qualify as obvious plays and which are obviously good. Another point to focus is the sizing that we would like to use in such cases. So let's just open up a little bit more. All right, so the sizing, correct sizing to be using on such a board, 763, would be a lot of B83, that is betting 80% of pot with all our overpairs. And see, bunch of these are super dark colored reds. So clearly fall in this large bet 80% approach. That's interesting again, because then Jack 10 off, Queen 10 off, all these again, just 2 overcards with like if we compare Jack 10 off, if it doesn't have an heart, we exclude heart. Then we see still there's a Jack of heart, okay, but even then we see that it wants to bet significantly. So that's again interesting, because this is a runner on a straight potential plus 2 overs with a lot less of anything else going on for itself. How is villain capped here? Can't he have deuces and threes set? Villain is capped because according to GTO, they are supposed to jam pocket pairs, which we looked at the beginning of this video. See, they're supposed to jam when we open, so no, they don't have sets. He can have those only specific combos. Yeah, no, according to GTO, they're supposed to just jam. Yeah, I mean, I could have taken 40 BB as well, so that there are no like such a heavy extent of jams happening, but then that again skews it a lot, which is what I've seen. So 30 BB is a good point for us to look at. Okay, but here interesting, these hands are like offsuit 10 combos, offsuit 9x combos are clearly underplayed by me. I often put them in a lot of checking basket, not so much of betting happening from my side. And the checks that we do are here as compared to what we did above with 7-3 deuce are more spread out in the range of having strong suited hands, where 8x plus kind of suited hands, we see all the king queen through king 8, queen jack through queen 8, and jack 10 through jack 8. All these hands seem to prefer checking. So that's interesting. These offsuit combos are betting because they have 2 overs and probably some runner on a straight potential. And these combos, which are suited, choose to balance the checking part of this range where we have 2 overs and again the same advantage. That's a pretty interesting approach. Suited combos prefer to keep the checking range balanced, and these offsuit want to go for bet. All right, so we have looked at a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Bhushan, can you just hover on that king queen suited in the below?
Sure. Just one second.
I may have missed something, but why isn't it showing a heart combo, king queen suited?
Yeah. So I did exactly that. I had excluded hearts, right? So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, even if it has a heart, it still prefers to
It's
check. I
checking.
mean, I don't consider this much of a bet as a bet strategy at all. Of course, it's a very small percentage, so not happening. Clear check with king queen. So all
But
the
King
bets.
Jack
This
is
is,
seems more of
yeah,
a
this
butt.
is interesting. These whenever we see a huge amount of, see, if you look at king jack over here in the range chart, we see that there's a lot of checks and just a few bets. But here, when we see a split into respective suits, we see that all the betting that is supposed to be done is supposed to be done with king jack of hearts and not at all with the rest of the combos. So that's another interesting thing to look at. Here, even though it's a small sliver of bet, that is still happening with hearts only. And as we go lower, king 10, king 9, king 8, I know one reason for sure, the reason why we are betting these is we could get better king x's to fold, potentially. And when we achieve that, we take the pot down here itself and do not risk not completing our flush with a weaker hand taking it to showdown, which could be potentially dominated uh, very easily with king 7, king 8. So that is one legit reason that I'm aware of why we bet king 7, king 8, king 9 more versus king 10, king jack, and king queen, because king queen is not going to get a better hand to fold. So the legendary questions to ask ourselves when we bet is, are worse hands calling and are better hands folding? So in case of king queen and king jack, better hands are not folding, which is the reason why we check. And king 7, uh, are better hands folding. So yeah, king 10 off, king 9 off, king 8 off can fold to our bet. We can just verify that as well. Yeah, see, this is what I'm glad I'm not spewing nonsense confidently. So this is what we want to achieve when we bet with king 7, king 6. So cut off. We are betting a bunch with these weaker king x's, king 7 a lot, king 8, and a lot of king 5 and king 4. So yesterday we talked about this, right? Like, what is the appeal of king 5 and king 4? So yeah, did find that these are the hands that we get to fold. Like, look at this, king jack, king queen. These hands are also folding so much, are supposed to fold so much. I'm not sure if everybody folds them, but in theory we are expecting better hands to fold. So that's the whole point of betting those. Maybe we'll hear more in depth. This is just one thought that is verified from a couple of videos that I saw yesterday. Okay, Avinash. Okay, first of all, AK says, why is Jack 7 checking more than 10-7? So that is interesting. It could also be a function of when we have a pair and a decent kicker, like Jack is definitely a good kicker, Queen, King are of course really good kickers. This could be having two functions. One is protecting the checking range, and second one is when this is included more, we may want to probably extract value out of the 6x and 3x. That's all I can think of, because 10-7 is clearly not going to get better hands to fold, and better hand than 10-7 essentially are these, and probably a few 10-8s and stuff. But again, that is not a better hand on the board to 10-7. So that those questions are not positively answered when you ask, are better hands folding versus these bets? It's probably more linked to the value that you are extracting by worse hands. So that's one reason I can think of, but that's a good point. We can definitely check this. I'll note it down.
It's
We'll
also got to do with the blockers. If
sorry.
we are blocking the 10, it's also got to do with the blockers. If we are blocking 10, we are blocking some
Hey, Bhushan,
Sorry,
none of us
sorry,
can.
my bad. My bad. I was on mute. All right. So I said we looked at a bunch of things, and that's an interesting topic about why Jack 7 doesn't bet and 10-7 or 9-7 prefers to bet over here, which I'll take up as a question in the summary of this session. And we'll close this session after we look at a bunch of good hands, which is the equity, which is not exactly the best hand that we hold. So the decision is not easy. It's not like we want to extract max value and how do we do it. It's about how do we balance this range? How do we stay cautious and at the same time don't knit up just because we don't have the best hand? So that's an interesting thing to look at, and the approach is different, significantly different on both of these boards, where we can see on 7-3 deuce, lot of approach is hooked on to betting small, lot of checks, and just a few large bets. Whereas if you look at the lower side of the screen, you can see the good hands are split between this is what we call polar. We check and we bet large. That's how we want to proceed on 7-6-3. We can again check with somebody to see how do we understand when we want to have a polar approach with our weaker hands compared to few other boards. In this case, this 7-3 deuce board. That'll be a good thing to check, because I'm honestly not really sure how we decided. Now that we have studied it, of course, we can recall this better, that top pairs essentially, oh, what's happened here? Why doesn't it show? E. It's a mistake. Just give me a sec. Okay. Oh, okay. So now I got it. We are not exactly looking at. Okay. All right. Interesting. I got confused there for a bit. When we hold a 7x, we can clearly have those hands in the best hands category, which is they are so good. We have a pair and a flush draw going for us. That's the appeal over here. We don't have a diamond, of course. We are likely to have a 7 of hearts or 7 of spades or 7 of clubs. So these hands are classified as best hands on 7-3 deuce board, versus on this board where 7 does have a heart, which is forming a flush draw. So for us to have a good hand, we cannot have we cannot be pairing with a 7 with this. That's the whole idea. That's the key difference over here. Kind of was got me stumped a little bit. But with good hands, that is top pair, and at the same time we do not have a flush draw, but we do have a top pair, and we could have a bunch of hands that are related to the 7, like a suited 8 perhaps could potentially have flush draws plus some straight potentials going ahead, like I guess 10-8 suited is heavily positive in that sense. Of course, 9-8 suited. Okay, that's one way. That's one reason probably why we see a lot of large betting happening, because you have to get probably a lot of folds and at the same time max value with their weaker holdings. Beyond that, I just see all similar approach on 7-6-3. We go polar, we go check, or we go bet large. There is no bet small happening at all. So that's an interesting difference between these two boards. And remember, why we started looking at this board is because there are significantly more checks as compared to 7-3 deuce. So increase the amount of checks. So whatever we bet, we want to bet with higher sizing, because we are going to bet with lesser frequency. As is the standard rule, you bet more often, you bet small. you bet less often, you bet large, and that leads us to us betting polar. But there could be a deeper reason to it, and that needs to be investigated. So that's probably one conclusion that I take from this study. We can try and understand a deeper difference between these boards. All right, so I'm good with the current takeaway of this session. If you guys have any closing thoughts, just shoot them now, or we can continue the discussion Discord. Any thoughts, any views? All right. I have not forced mute on all of you, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, all right, cool. Okay, in that case, we'll wrap up the session. It was a pretty short one, but yeah, a lot of insights and a lot of clear mistakes that I've been doing are now clear
Bhushan,
out in the open.
Bhushan,
Yes, cool.
could it be possible that ace 7, king 7, queen 7 are betting big? Like suppose ace 7 is betting big to make fold some other king, queen hands, queen 8, because they may
No.
be strong, but jack 7 is comparatively weak. But if you go down 10, 7, 9, 7 can make straights. So again, they become strong enough.
So first of all, the reason why ace 7, king 7 and queen 7 are betting is pure value. They do not want folds. Because we have a top pair, top kicker, pretty much a solid hand category to bet. That's very clear. When I say that we want a better hand to fold, it's usually linked with a draw that we have and a hand that they could have that actually dominates us could be potentially be folding. So that is an approach when I say better hands are folding. When I say we bet king 7, there is absolutely no intention of getting a fold from ace 7, because only ace 7 is better than king 7, right? But when we bet jack 7, I think this is solely because we want to balance the checking part of our range, and still jack is pretty strong enough to be contributing strength to the checking range. So we could potentially also go ahead and check 9-7 or 10-7, but they are going to be weak as well. So if we get pressure, if we get led into on the turn and jam on the river, I'm not sure how good they are going to be performing. Versus jack 7 is definitely calling. We can check that out just before we close the call, I think, but I'll stop recording now. Just give me a sec.